from the Lucid Fringe. Ravings from the Lucid Fringe. Musings from an unpasteurized life. Improvised on the front line of love and beauty. Welcome, I'm Semeric Yarrow. This week on Ravings from the Lucid Fringe, episode 63, Hollow Lanterns, Light at the Southern Winter Solstice. Turning the heating on in the car, and once upon a time in my northern childhood, chocolate liqueurs upon a Christmas tree. There are some global middle-class comforts associated with the modern dark of winter, and others older, less class-conscious. We need some comfort in winter, surely. That is one of the things we look for. The holding of the mother, even in the dark. Hot water bottles, mulled wine. Here in the Cape, winter is definitely about dark mornings. Switching lights on before we can make it out of bed. The sunlight streaming into the bedroom, a distant memory. Humanity has moved into dark, cold parts of the world, led by those who learnt to take dairy herds into the long winters, or survived on animal fats, or appetite-suppressing plants, or other signs of the simplifying the winter parts of our souls crave. The holy dark approaches, along with the wind and the rain. There's a part of me that tries to just get through June and July and reach that sweet spot in August when the flowers are joyful. The rain is still sweeping in at times, but the days are getting longer again. That would be to miss the point. And indeed, winter is all about a point. Stopping, taking a big breath, and then, perhaps, not another. Bears hibernate, and inspire ancient mankind to slow down too. The regions they live we name for those inspiring bears up north, who some say are old shamans taking a new form, the Arctic. The term shaman was not invented for New Age Californians, but for Siberian nights. And under the snow there's death and stillness and the blessed relief of just stopping for a while. Because time has this way of kicking things on again. Perhaps I should just stop here and leave the rest of the recording silent, like that white snow, allowing other thoughts to brew. Though in the Cape we don't get much of that. Instead we get remnants of a slow autumn, right up to and bleeding into the perky appearances of spring. The brown leaves still sit on some of the trees, where in colder climes they might be long gone. The evergreens remain as the most potent symbol of Yule, of the turning of the world, of the promise of freshness even as we move into stillness. We have to keep reminding each other it's winter. No frost even, at least this close to the ocean. This does not mean, however, that there hasn't been an inward curl, like a cat by the fire, into sleep, by fireplaces, pine cones from those evergreens sparking off the flames. Though is this just an avoidance of what winter brings us, that opportunity to really feel the bite in the cold and the dark, and also trust there's a way out? Sometimes I've felt the need to shrivel and not have to carry on. Perhaps this just makes me a seed, though. For if there's a way out of winter, there really is no way out of the bigger cycle of samsara, as the Buddha zinged years ago. And so another part of acknowledging this cycle is the lighting of lanterns to spiral with. The tiny light, the candle in the dark, lit so that we can make big pictures when brought together, ephemeral fireworks, shooting stars in the overwhelming presence of universal space. Our children walk with their lanterns, because this is also a time for crafting, for art. In those caves that bears retreat to, there are ancient scratches on the walls, another way they inspired us. Because in the dark, what better time is there to think, to meditate, to absorb, to allow to settle, and then to patiently give out again. Chrysalis time that might lead to the magic of the black night. We imagine deep night as that time of magic. The witches on the heath are not enjoying a summer sunbathe. Among the first symbols of our species are plenty of spirals. As we spiral inwards, the circle gets ever tighter until we are forced to slow down. There's no rush in winter. The pace is slow, with a quality of care, and it resonates with loss. Both the profound losses we have experienced with the ending of previous cycles and lives, and the longing, which is the absence still of what's to come. So there's a deep melancholy here, and it allows us to gain the master gift of winter, that of empathy. Here's why that middle-class comfort needs to switch off for a bit. Turn off the geyser or the gas fire. Sense the cold that others have to inhabit more often. Open the windows and breathe that simple, icy air. And maybe remember what it is to be invisible when the light is gone. To stop questing for recognition, for acknowledgement. The mama acknowledges us anyway, sees what our little lives have managed as pinpricks in the great darkness. For astronomy tells us now what we already knew, that there's a vastness beyond our time-based meanderings that is unfathomable. There's a word that's wintry. Depth beyond the possible, from which there's no return, except that there also is, as our ancestors joyfully greet the returning sun and the first push of cotyledons through the soil. This is the place of grief, necessary for us to feel the coming spring dawn. And grief is about connection. We grieve what we've loved, so there are roots to it, like pulled teeth. If we don't get to sigh, to yawn, to breathe out from the constant action, we can't feel it, and then we probably can't feel much else either. So there is, of course, a special kind of magic to winter. There are increasing numbers of human Cape swallows, roaming digital nomads coming for our summer, for those who would seek the endless warmth, and of course much of humanity never dives deeply into winter, since equatorial regions have their own monsoon seasons. The local tourism authority used to market this colder, darker time of year as the Cape's secret season. I'm taken back with nostalgia to my own cold childhood in the north, nostalgia being a very wintry feeling, even if it really doesn't last that long. There are mushrooms popping out today, when we walked through Grootvadersbos, the indigenous forest a few hours east of the big city. Unusual fat ones on the side of fallen bark that I'm sure we'd miss in a warmer month. On Table Mountain there are different things flowering every time I've visited. Some beings much prefer the coolth. Fat worms have pushed up great dollops of soil onto the path today. A male bushbuck takes advantage of the quiet to nibble on the edge of the empty tourist cabins. The silence is actually full of less showy life. Cold water in the mornings. I dive in, accompanied often by compatriots from my hood, freezing the system for a daily reset. It's a good practice, and in spite of the cold comes the paradoxical feeling of being more alive, with a zest that only the cold can bring. That sauna principle of seeking cold after heat, dipping in one polarity then the other, allowing our bodies to veer between two poles, experiencing the kind of swing that creates dynamos, dynamism. Musically, we need dynamics. One music student of mine observed years ago that Russian composers from that highly charged and often freezing land invented, to his mind, the beat drop. The fat Buddhist zero, the emptiness from which all possibilities emerge, the holy gap. Yom Kippur has much the same essence of the moment of stepping out of time. Mayan days beyond time, in their cycle, count for something similar to the big fast of Lent, Ramadan, devised by peoples from warmer climes. Though night-time in the desert is icy like the far north and south, clear, stars sparkling when the cloud cover can't protect us. There's a visceral excitement to all this, a little dot inside the yin side of things, which brings us back to those childhood lanterns in the dark. St. John's fires will soon be lit. The symbolism of St. John resonates more in the south, I think. 6 months away from the abundant celebration of our summer Christmases, the wild man in the wilderness tells us all to reflect, to change our ways so that we are more aligned for a glory to come, baptizes us into the cold plunge, a little light that is full of promise for the return of the greater light. A Christian moment that's all about that pagan cycling as the shaman re-emerges. Though the saint is not far from Shiva too, the terrifying divine destroyer from the wilderness turning purple from the cold. And he, in turn, is not far from his beloved Kali, dark midnight power who wears men's skulls and dances in the cremation ground. Dem bones. The one the gods call on when nothing else but a total raking will do. She is a midnight hag we have to face, appearing too as Kundry in Parsifal, tuning the young fool to get real. Ugly and magnificent, with matted hair full of unseen roots. And Kundry's name is related to the oldest English name for that great dark birth channel we came down kicking and mewling. We could talk more about the chrysalis. Impossibly magical, transformative in ways we simply cannot understand in any kind of summer daylight mode, no matter what the future butterfly may tempt us with. Kali's challenge here is to the corporate comfort of the mainstream city that pretends that death never comes. Reduced to nothing but stillness and breath, we find an inner heat, a tapas, that naked yogis knew in the Himalayan snows and Wim Hof juiced up for modern swimmers. My fingers tingle as my body turns in and finds its own resources, its own heat. And winter is a time for telling tales, for acknowledging the ancestors as midnight approaches. In many traditions, the deepest night is ancestor time, waking us at times to tune into what we may not have noticed in the busy heat of the day. This is why we go on vision quests, why we step away from the distractions and into the power of our deeper selves, connecting gratefully to the core experience of being alive yet again. Many traditions take it a step further, inviting us to get buried, to climb into the still dark and return renewed, ready to shed skins, making friends with the inevitable final doorway. Hiking in the cold morning on the wrong side of the mountain so that the sun has not yet warmed the slopes. Cold breeds cold. The streams are chilled, the creatures grow still. Yet the birds sing regardless, as the trees release their oxygen for the dawn, unhurried, unnoticed. Stamina is needed. The fire needs to be blown on, needs its oxygen too, so that the sparks can breathe. Yule logs don't light themselves. Paraffin is a fire-lighting cop-out, yet that liquid is squeezed from deep in the earth, like so much that we rely on, quietly waiting over eons for its moment to flare. And of course fire dancers would be invisible in the broad summer daylight. We scrawl great seams of words that mean nothing so that we can find a nugget of golden metaphor. And then there is the invisible consciousness. In the sauna, traditionally, like in the kiln, there's a slow baking elf, an elemental being waiting to be acknowledged, getting its own special round of acknowledgement. Winter is about work, then. Doing the hours, processing before the dawn, the dream space beyond language. Kudiyatam is another unique creative form, emerging in the hot lands of Kerala, which needed its deep slowing down. One chapter of an epic, played out by an actor in excruciatingly beautiful slowness over the course of a week. Easier in the winters of Tibet, where the monastery bell sounds, knowing its one slow gong note, sounds containing all the melodies of summer, humming deep, not just to our tingling skin, but right into our bones. Bones are what we leave behind, hard, still, bare. No surprise that another warm land, Mexico, needed to call on bones on a dramatic and essential Day of the Dead to remind the people, because in lush climates the night is the closest winter really comes, to reminding us of the ones who are dead and gone, like we all will be. Here there's the Namib and the Kalahari, and Bushmen still survived in our great deserts until our modern greed for the easy things of the depths collapsed their truths. Without an awareness of the awful processes that caused diamonds, how can we connect to the majesty of the midwinter? One of my favourite children's books, Moominland Midwinter, not coincidentally created in Finland, describes in exquisite melancholy the life before spring, sometimes trampled over by overly rational Hemulans in snowshoes, while the everyday sunnier life sleeps. Cats are far from being snow leopards, yet they get the point. An astonishing 20 hours of sleep daily, curled up in their own spirals. As I said before, but now I find myself circling in on them, they reflect our own embryonic state, fetally curled up in a dark womb, one which is full of warmth if life is to come. We couldn't have our deep winter experience if those in the north weren't splashing on summer beaches. If we embrace this, then elderhood is not something to be feared. It's another, slower phase, an opportunity to read and smoke pipes, perhaps. Tobacco is largely a product of warmer climes, and in its original status as a holy plant, it is a way to slow down and get present, not drift off into hallucinogenic fantasies. Sam Bushman, interviewed in the 19th century by Bleek and Lloyd, compared themselves with us. We, working people, did something they couldn't see the point of. They were smoking people. Stiller times. Cooler climes apparently have fungus. Red and white guides to the depths, poisonous to the point of danger, but with the right care and attention and slow fermentation, portals. Traditional entheogens used with guidance and protocol take participants into the layers under the layers. fermentation sometimes happens too rapidly in hot zones. Surströmming, Swedish fermented fish, rots over 6 months. Rotting is the essential slow balance to life that winter brings. Whiskey, Huiskebacher, the water of life, is fermented at high latitudes from soft, peaty, earthy plants, taking perhaps 10 years to mature, which is a lot longer than my kefir. And alcohol is another traditional way for those in cold zones to escape the lessons of winter. I recall wearing very little on winter evenings outside youthful nightclubs, and in this perhaps I was unconsciously connecting with that need for the real cold, though more likely I was just indulging in that delicious, unreal warmth of the cheap alcohol I'd imbibed. On visiting England again in winter in more recent decades, I found myself opening windows. Like many of us South Africans, for whom central heating feels like another kind of cop-out. Though, to return to my original thoughts, our Cape winter is a domesticated taste of the real thing. In Johannesburg they get a colder version, echoed by the altitude that drops the temperature. Miniature bonsai forest fires crackle slowly along the edges of municipal parks, in a dry version of winter that is quite different to our own. The tin roofs of the Cape pound at times with the torrents of these months, but then the Bergwind arrives, our own Harmattan, swinging round to bring those warm desert days into the field, raising temperatures in an unstable way before the next cold front. On such days we need to venture to the west to find the iciness in the ocean, where the Benguela current brings the Antarctic right up to the shoreline, brings penguins to the desert, reminds us that Cape Town is the launching point for many a ship exploring that unforgiving southern ocean, a place where winter is perhaps stronger than anywhere else because there isn't even land, unlike those hulking Gulf Stream warmed places in the equivalent northern latitudes. Albatrosses know all about midwinter. If this is a meditation, it's prepared in a solitary way, like most meditation, though paradoxically we often go deeper into that non-verbal no-thought zone when we meditate together. I could rap out a big beat on winter to the backbeats of an urban collective, but perhaps it wouldn't have the same effect. Though the elders of the future may well do that, who knows? They may have mastered the method by then. Elderhood is a lot about coming to terms with winter, embracing it and loving it, trusting that there will be right times to share our stories, for the chains of culture to be linked. Some of my best hugs have taken place slowly on dark winter nights. Connection in winter, perhaps, is how humanity found its way towards a shared creativity, a shared set of stories, ways of making life palatable through art, even in the darkest of nights. That is surely enough of a reason to keep warming the mulled wine and gathering together, making our tiny collective lights a little more real, switching off the technology that claims to unite us, but often actually prevents us from seeing what we need to do next. The dark can do that. Sweet dreams. So, thank you for listening to this latest episode in the series, and you can find all of my articles and my recordings at lucidfringe.substack.com, except my music and poetry from the past, which is all available at simrickyarrow.bandcamp.com, and the background recordings and sounds that you will have heard are all either from those recordings or they are my own. Please do give this a rating if it's on your podcast app. Please spread the word if you enjoy what you hear, and if you want to give me some feedback or commentary, of course I'm very open to that. Any suggestions for future episodes the front line of love and